What's up guys, Jared with Jared's Drone Media. Hope you're doing very well. Every Tuesday I'm dropping bite-sized videos for you talking all things drone, and today we're going to talk about how to request authorization to fly in controlled airspace, and I'm going to give you a brief overview and an example how to do it right here in Stillwater. Stay tuned. Hey, what's up guys? Thanks for stopping by today. Do appreciate it very much. If I sound a little funny, I'm getting over a little upper respiratory cold, and no, it wasn't COVID, it was a walking pneumonia, and so I'm just getting on the backside of that and feeling a little bit better, good enough to record a video, so if I sound a little funny, that's why. But today we're talking about how to request and get authorization to fly in controlled airspace, because remember, as we talked in our last videos, you have to get approval if you're flying in controlled airspace, whether you're a recreational pilot or a commercial pilot. That applies to everybody. Now, the FAA created a really simple system, and they've fine-tuned it over the last few years. Prior to the LAANC system, the people who were requesting authorization had to go on the FAA website and fill out an application and submit that to the FAA to get approval to fly in controlled airspace, and that could take up to 90 days. That's what I used to have to do, and I still have some of my waivers active. But since then, they have approved the LAANC system, which stands for the Low Altitude Authorization and Notification Capability System. They have made that system available to over 700 airports and airspaces across the country, and finally brought it to Stillwater, Oklahoma. So now we as pilots can jump on our phone and get instant approval to fly in Class D airspace here in Stillwater. And so what I want to do is tell you what app to use and do a screen record for you, walking you through the steps of using the app so you're familiar with it before you even go out and try. It's a great pre-flight planning app as well. There's some weather information in there. It's a really good app to have on your phone. And again, if you're going to fly within 5-mile controlled airspace of Stillwater, you're going to have to get approval to do that, and this is the easiest and most efficient way to do it. So let's jump over to that screen record and let's see what it's all about. Hey guys, we are now on my phone, and we are going to show you exactly the steps I go through to get approval to fly in controlled airspace when I'm doing jobs around here in Stillwater. And again, that goes for recreational pilots too. But this little app right here called Aloft, I'm going to move that out of the way so you can see it a little bit better. Go ahead and download that app, create an account. There's several different other apps out there that have the capability. This is kind of the preferred app by the FAA. They've partnered with other companies to provide authorization, but Aloft is one of the companies that is very much approved by the FAA. So I recommend using them, and they're a really good source of information beyond just requesting information. If you want another little tip, this UAV forecast over here, that is a great weather app prior to flying your drone. If you want to look up what the weather's going to be, how many satellites and your GPS connection and all that, I really recommend that app. So let's jump over to Aloft. After you get it downloaded, you're going to open it up. Let's make sure our GPS is on always, and it's going to eventually load your location. And what I meant by other information other than authorization requests is you get a decent amount of weather information. I can see the wind right now as I'm recording this video is 5 miles an hour, 10 miles of visibility. We have to have 3 miles of visibility as drone operators to operate. Cloud cover is only 22%, gives me sunset and all that good stuff. So that's a quick way to look at some of the weather in your area. But I want to focus on the map here up above. As you can see, if I scroll out a little bit, we've got several different rings and we've got several different sectors, and we've got a lot of information going on. So when I talk to you guys about controlled airspace and being able to read a sectional chart, that's essentially what this is. It's a sectional chart, but in my opinion, it's much easier to read for people who don't have experience reading sectional charts. And this is very specific to drones, because when a plane goes in the air, they can fly at most altitudes. When a drone goes in the air, our altitude is up to 400 in most cases. And so our rules are a little bit different, and so our maps look a little bit different. So Class D airspace was that blue ring on the sectional chart that we talked about in that last video. So the blue ring, the big blue ring, is a 5-mile radius outside of the Stillwater Airport. So if you're within that radius, you have to request approval through this app. I'm standing at my house in my backyard. If I zoom in, you can see that I'm just outside of that radius. However, I'm in this other area, but what is that other area? It's yellow. Yellow is an advisory area, okay? You can click on this map and it will tell you basically what everything is, and you can also enable and disable all the different map layers. I won't get into each one of these because that would take too long, but essentially just leave it on default. And that's what all the different colors on this map are, just the different map layers depicting whether it's controlled airspace. The yellow is an advisory area depicting that there's a heliport nearby. That's the Stillwater Medical heliport. So that's basically like an airport. It's not controlled airspace, but you need to be aware of it. So that's why they put that yellow circle on there in conjunction with the blue circle in controlled airspace. And so what I want to focus your attention on is within the blue ring, you'll see these different numbers. All right, these are different sectors within this ring, and those numbers, as you've guessed, are how high you can request authorization to fly. So in this area over here, we can request authorization at 400, but if we scroll up over to, you see that 100 off McElroy and Western, you can only fly at 100 feet there if you get approval through this app. And you can't go any higher than that. This app will not let you request authorization to go higher than that. If you get closer to the airport, guess what? Zero. Zero means no approval. You can try to call the tower and get approval. They may or may not let you fly there. Generally speaking, unless it's just really, really important, don't fly near airports. Keep the drones away from the airports. That's the safest thing to do. I've been flying in Stillwater since 2017, and to be honest, I've yet to have a need to fly that close to the airport in 4 or 5 years. So really, guys, just don't do it unless you have an absolute need to, and you need to coordinate with the tower specifically. You can't do it through this app. You will not get permission. So now let's request approval. So I'll give you an example. I do a Photography Friday post on Instagram, and a few weeks back I wanted to fly Boomer and take a picture of it. Well, let's scroll into Boomer and see what we can do here. Well, as you can see, most of Boomer is off limits to drone flights because it's really close to the airport. However, the southeast corner of Boomer, you can fly at 300 feet, right? So what we do is we click on the map where we want to fly. Now, one thing to note, there is an Oklahoma drone law that does not allow you to fly over critical infrastructures. A dam is a critical infrastructure. So if you're flying your drone and you don't have permission from the city of Stillwater, do not fly your drone directly over to the dam of Boomer. Disclaimer. Okay, so phone timed out there. But so what I did is I went to the walking trail just behind and got permission to fly about there. You got to be a certain distance away from the dam. And all I did was select my area. I can do 300 feet worth of altitude in this area. And so then I scroll up on my bottom map and I see the little get authorization symbol. And then I'm going to select which authorization I want. Am I flying for fun or am I flying commercially? The process is the exact same. So just pick the one that you are. I'm always typically flying commercially. So I select it, and then I ask, and I tell them how high I need to fly. I actually only flew to 200 feet that day, and I stayed below that, and I tell you why. I know the air traffic in this area. There's a lot of planes that fly over Boomer, and so I knew that I wanted to stay pretty low to avoid any potential problems. And so I only requested for 200 feet. And then when you before you hit next, go ahead and zoom in on your target area and make sure that the green square is targeted to fit your needs, okay? Now, don't take your green square into a zone that's a no-fly zone, because see down at the bottom how it highlighted orange? Now it's not gonna let you request approval because that top left green corner is now in a no-fly zone. So make sure you don't get too crazy with it. And also, guys, keep in mind that you have to keep your drone in line of sight. So if you request approval way, way big, like a large area, make sure you're keeping your drone in line of sight, okay? If you're not, you're flying illegally. There's a reason for that. It's safety. So I requested a very small area because all I did was pop my drone straight up above me. And so I requested an area about this size right here. And I parked in the Pioneer, or not the Pioneer Square parking, but I parked at what I call the Old Walls parking lot. And I jumped on the walking trail to Boomer, and I walked up the trail, and I found a nice grassy spot off to the side where I could launch my drone without any pedestrians in the way. And I put it straight up in the sky and took some pictures of Boomer. And if you want to see that photo, it's actually on my Instagram. And so now that I've got my map marked out for myself, we hit next, and we select our date and time. You can, request it for a day or two in advance if you want, and that's okay. So say we wanted to do this Monday at 9 a.m. we can do that. We select our date and time, and then we tell them how long we need to fly for. I typically only need about 30 to 45 minutes in the air. Give yourself a little extra time just in case something goes wrong or you forgot a battery or something like that. Give yourself a little extra time. I always recommend a solid 30 minutes of flight approval, but if you need a little longer, they'll let you do that. But I typically don't go more than an hour. I'm typically not in the air more than an hour unless it's a big job, and I've had to request several hours, and they'll let you do that. But just request, my point is just request what you need, guys. So say we're gonna do 45 minutes. That way I have enough to get my drone in the sky, get my settings where I want them based on that day's light and ambient light and all that. So I decided 45 minutes is enough for me. You can get a review on some of the basic rules by looking at the LAANC notes. This is always good to look at. You'll hit next and see how it says eligible for auto approval. It tells you the class of the airport and the airport information. Review all your time and your date, and all you'll do is hit next and you'll get approval for that. And so I'm not gonna hit next, guys, just because I don't wanna submit a false approval and send that into the system. But you'll hit next, and after that, it'll say approved. And if it doesn't approve it, it'll tell you why. Most of the time when you don't get approval, it's because you tried to do it at night, like past sunset, and there's a little bit different process for that. It's pretty much the same with one little exception, and we can touch on that in another video. So if you have questions about that, send me a comment or email me or text me. But that's essentially it. And once you get your approval, you'll get a text message from the FAA. And it looks like this. And so it has all the information that you submitted for, date, time, how high you're flying, are you flying recreationally or for Part 107. You have to enter in your phone number and all that information when you do ask for approval, and that way the air traffic controllers can contact you if they need to, and you basically agree to fly correctly. And this is always good to keep on hand. Take a screenshot of that, save it, print it off. That way if anybody has questions, you have documentation of it in case it gets lost on your phone. But that is your approval, and that is the system to get approved. And so, like I said, guys, it is a super simple process. It takes you about 5 minutes to do. It's not very hard, but it does force you to do some pre-flight planning. It makes you look at airspace charts, and it makes you look at weather a little bit and get your gears thinking. So you need to always be thinking about going out and flying safe, doing some pre-flight stuff. It's always a good habit to do, especially when we're in the sky flying. You want to keep it as safe as possible. So I hope that helped you understand how to request approval specifically here in Stillwater, Oklahoma. If you have any other questions, drop me a comment below, send me a message, shoot me an email. I'd love to hear from you guys, and we'll catch you guys next week for Drone Talk Tuesday.